Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in. Curiosity, leashes attached. You know, that scene that reminds me of something. And hello, Matt. Good to see you again. And before I even get to what it reminds me of, and there's Richard. Oh man, we have a whole cast of characters here. You know, when we have Matt on the show, Kevin, you and I are chump change. So you know, he comes with his own fan club. So you know, we'll just mutter through the show the best we can. When I saw Wookie there doing his thing, Wookie has is his own avatar now. He has a trained voice. All the gestures, the ear movements, the mouth, the nose, all of it is coordinated with the speech. And it was our pal John Voight that did that. So we are up against a challenge now, and we have a team that's going to delve into it. But for those who haven't checked, there was an announcement made by Joe yesterday, such that we now have talking books. You know, it was one thing to get a transcript of these shows, so we're going the opposite direction from a talkie to a book. Now on the books, he has trained 3 voices to present the books, and they really do a marvelous job. And he's done one chapter out of Bereth Covenant just to prove the point, and it's interactive with the page turner book, which is quite a challenge in and of itself, because the page turner book isn't actually words on a page. It's a picture of a page. And so to coordinate the voice with the paragraph that it is speaking to, when it's not words on a page, but pictures of a page, that's quite some programming that went into that. But it does, and it highlights where you are. And if you turn the page, it will pick up on the next page, and we'll soon have it so that it'll it will remember where you are and doing things like that. But it's a huge step forward. But it's a first step in a direction that's important for us to go. And now that next step, fortunately for us, it plays right into Rich's and Perry's wheelhouse, particularly Rich, who has done this sort of thing now for a number of years, which is training the avatars to do text to speech. And it is actually very hard to do well. If you are a YouTube fan and you get a lot of your information and news via YouTube, you'll realize that the majority now of the presenters have gone to having AIs write their script and having an AI deliver the script. And it's a pretend version of the person made to look like the person with some gestures. And they vary from hideously bad to plausibly acceptable. And some of them are actually done in such a way that they aren't designed to be completely real. They're designed to be really effective. And so some of them are just magnificent. And what we realize is that if we take our text to speech, particularly with the trained voices, and particularly as Rich and Perry apply their knowledge to it, and you can see what Rich has posted in this regard. It's they're speaking a language that is beyond me. So they're outside of my wheelhouse and in their wheelhouse. But as we do this, if we can not only get all of the books done like this, which is quite a project, it's 25,000 or more pages, but the next step is to make them interesting, and that so the comprehension is increased and retention is increased. You want to have an avatar speaking them. And to have an avatar speaking them, it's not just a matter of picking your 3 avatars. It's training the avatars so that their expressions are not just flat, so that their lips are literally moving as they are pronouncing those words, so that it's credible and it works effectively. Because at that point, we don't have to go through the books as part of these shows. The AI will do it all. This is an expensive process. It's a very time-consuming process, but we are on the cusp of being able to do this, and it's a really important undertaking to get the proper voices. And it's more than just getting a proper voice, because with Yada Yawa series, you really need three voices. You need the commentator's voice, you need the voice of the bold and the citations from Yahweh and his prophets, and you need a different, softer voice that presents the Hebrew words and the amplification. Because if it's all the same voice, it becomes overpowering. It's why I wrote those amplified translations the way I did, where I didn't try to put too much in the bold and put more in the parenthetical, because otherwise you're just not going to be, your mind won't stay focused long enough to make it all the way through, unless it's there's a real difference. And so it's beautifully done from that point of view. But as we move into Twistianity and into goddamn religion, we can't have an erudite, literate spokesperson giving undue credit to the mess that is the Quran and Hadith. So we need redneck and dum dum to read those things and not come across as particular.
Well, look who you got on your show today. We have the perfect voices. We got redneck right here. You know what I mean? So it's like we got the voices for it.
Okay. Well, that's I had cast you as smart fellow, so that's going to be tough. But if you want to be recast as redneck chicken farmer, we aim to please. No, we actually do. We need some voices to do that, and we also have the challenge that the Hebrew words that are presented in the parenthetical and the amplified translations, they aren't spoken Hebrew. They are transliterations of the most generic form of the word, stripped of conjugations and conjunctions and the proper pronouns, as well as conjugations, moods, and stems. They're stripped of all of those things, because if they were loaded with them, you couldn't look them up, which would defeat the purpose of verification. But it's not spoken Hebrew if you have them stripped of all of that and don't load them up.
That's also known as Yada speak.
Yeah, it is Yada speak. But it was a written text designed to have the written generic form of the word available to be copied and pasted into a search engine. That is the design for it, so that you could validate the translations yourself. So it's written to written. It is not written to spoken. But the other issue is that if you were to get a Hebrew speaker to convey that, which has been one of the suggestions, that won't work, because they have deliberately changed the sounds of the letters. They have made the B and the wa, the be'eth and the wa, a V sound. They've done so many stupid things to change the pronunciation of the terminology, and it wouldn't be fair to God to have that change reflected in these translations.
Absolutely.
So we have some work to do, but it's probably our most important project at the moment. Another note from yesterday to today, to show we're not static here, the glossary that the team has been working on. It's been a project going way back to Kirk, which would have been Kirk and Mary's input. And then JB had his own, what he called his cheat sheet, and Mike Beati had one, and Will engaged to try to bring them all together. And ultimately, Perry is the one who blended them all into one document and formatted it all. But it's now presented. So if you go to the translations page, you'll find translations, Dead Sea Scrolls, glossary, and grammar. And so there's now a much more robust capability for which to search all of that. I think later today we will either have the calendar inserted as a tab on the timeline, above the timeline, which will take place certainly this week, if not today. And we're going to get a lot more control over our homepage, so we can make certain that that large rectangle in the homepage has the current show, and that the ones below it are the three next most recent, that we have 3 songs, that we have 3 invites, and that we have 3 featured vlogs, all part of the homepage. We'll just have better control over what's there. And so those are our current projects for yadayah.com. And one of the things that, Kevin, you've been a big participant in this, and so have you, Matt, is that we're really getting now stimulating any interaction between thoughtful people expressing their insights and understanding on a variety of different topics.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of engagement going on, a lot of people contributing their thoughts, and some that wasn't even through Facebook. People weren't engaging as much, but now we're seeing a lot of the family members that had not previously engaged are coming forward and engaging.
Yes, and they don't have to sock it out with the religious and political, conspiratorial, anti-Semitic netwits, because while the site is open to anyone who wants to read and learn, to contribute to the site, to actually share your insights and conclusions, you have to become a member. And we did that on purpose, so that people, when they express their insights, you know who it was that is posting this, and you can speak directly to them because you know who they are. And if somebody wants to be belligerent and antagonizing, well, they can go back to social media. That's not what this site is for. And of course, we had because we had some real nutcases trying to abuse the AI, that we had to make the AI members only as well. And those changes made a significant difference. So
absolutely,
pleased with what we have and what we're witnessing on the site. So with all that being the case, Matt, you don't need any more introductions. If we talked more about you, you'd become more famous than Dode. So we'll I'm saying that lovingly. It's it is. I was writing today about Dode, because Dode fell lower than a squished worm on a hot road. He was really in bad shape, and he was self-medicating for depression. That's why he went into the lethargy that you typically see that of depression. If you have depression, you're wallowing all over yourself and lounging around during the day. You're not making a contribution, and you will self-medicate with drugs. And that was what Dode was doing. And you become way too preoccupied with your physical state and not with the state of your soul or Yahweh spirit. And that's where we found Dode. And it was Leah as the Amma that went in there and smacked him around and said, no, get out of this mindset. This is entirely wrong. But it was this realization: you have to be productive. You got to get out of yourself and make a contribution. That is the best way to recover from any addiction and any form of depression, is to get out of yourself and start contributing to others, and you will find that is the path to recovery.
Yep, it really is.
Yep. So anyway, that's what we're writing. Our intent is to get these 3 versions of Coming Home woven at least into 2 books, so they can be presented. And we began learning at such a prodigious pace that which I wrote 2 months ago has to be edited for what we have learned since that time. And we have Doe made a comment just I think it was late yesterday or earlier today, by saying, this idea of God having a group of souls that he feels comfortable with, that he can demonstrate the what he's trying to achieve through, and he can resolve the big crises when they come up with a group that he knows he can deploy, and they'll get it done. her conclusion was, I'm not trying to write myself into the story, mind you, because nobody wants to do that because they know what comes along with that. But what she said is, I can't imagine any of them being deployed without a cast of characters around them. And she called them triggers, but you have to have a cast of characters around them. And my response is, we have to have that now.
Yeah.
This particular deployment would be impossible without a family. Absolutely impossible. Cannot be done. And so if that's the case now, why wouldn't it also have been the case previously? So that it's not just that handful of characters that keeps getting redeployed. That handful of characters has a handful of characters, each of them, that get deployed along with them, because it does take a family to get her done.
Yeah, for sure. I just reading Doe's post, I responded, and I have been going back and forth in my head all day. I'm distracted now on the show because it was just so thought provoking. That brainstorming kind of, if this, then this, and that sort of thing. I mean, it great conversation, and we've had lots of folks weighing in on them.
Yeah, what it leads you to ponder is what I did. Once I realized in reading the final word picture that that's Leia, and I'm the dude that wrote it. And that's the reason I referred to myself as the husband. It's like Flotus. I'm the guy that's put her up to this and supporting her. And you go after it, girl. I'm with you on this one. And then you came to know, well, then that guy that's the husband is Ethan Hawes-Rocky that co-authored the 89th Mizmor. And then you trace down Amma, and you go right to Ruth's doorstep, and then you realize that brought Ruth and Leia and I together through Ruth, and she has to deliver the kinsman redeemer, and she's there in Jerusalem doing that, and she's going to return to do it as his mother, and she's doing it there as his surrogate mother. And then you read that her name is Leia, and what Leia says about being the Ashar, and you say, okay, all right, I get it, that you made your point. We were there. But doesn't that also mean we were Ruth and Boaz? And then you go there, and here we are again in this role. But Ruth and Boaz deliver the kinsman redeemer, which means they came back, doesn't it? And then you're saying, I'm reading this story about Noach, and it's impossible if you take it at just face value. There's Noach, and his name has to be the same as the name of Chinook, which has to be the same as the name of Ethan Hawes-Rocky, and those names have to describe someone, a soul whose attributes and attitudes and characteristics are consistent through all of this time, and you're going to be able to track them through the most important moments where things were about to fall apart and they needed to be put back together. We just didn't get the easy deployments. I mean, each of the deployments, there was one. So got to be fair. There was one deployment that was an easy deployment. I think that's fair on you.
Boaz.
Yeah, Boaz. Oh yeah, me and Boaz was cool, man. I like Boaz, man, and being Leia was Ruth was a great deployment. It wasn't so much fun when we came back as Ruth and Boaz and had to walk Dode as the Messiah and the firstborn through Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and living in occupied Yehuda under Roman authority. That was not a good gig. So, there are places where it's really fun. I'm going to tell you that the gig with Noach, that was no cakewalk. But anyway, you find where you are, and exploring where you have been is really fascinating. And it wasn't all that long ago, within the last 6 to 9 months, that maybe a year, that we realized where we were going. And I was able to see in my mind exactly what was going to happen. visually going forward. And so, because you were doing this thought experiment of can you visualize where you have been and where you're going? And finally, and I'm saying is I'm now coming to understand where I have been, and gradually
Right.
putting all the pieces together of where I've been and why I was there. And now I'm visualizing where I'm going. And so if I'm doing that, I mean, all of these characters that you should be doing that too. Look, where have you been? You know, when you read somebody in the story and say, boy, that person sounds a lot like me, read yourself into the story. That is that's what we want to do. That is a really intelligent way to go about it. And I think God encourages us to read ourselves into the story in that regard. There's a lot to do. And boy, do we have a lot to do right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that is increasing with the tasking of getting more collaborators and contributors in a vlog sense. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen getting helping folks out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's fielding lots of phone calls, and I mean, Rich has been great as far as I think he should have bought stock in that little AI camera company because
Yeah.
he sold a few of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I saw that thing demonstrated when
Mhm.
Rich first plugged it in, and marvelous. I mean, just absolutely marvelous what a plug and play camera like that is capable of doing, and it will track him all over the room.
Watching me make coffee.
Yeah, it's watching you. In fact, it is. If he had it on himself, he stepped away from all the cables. He's over behind my desk where we have a coffee maker, and Rich does run on high def. He is.
So does Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, you guys are. Oh, there you go. You guys are both on your coffee hits, and so that camera does it, and it has a built-in mic, and it has all sorts of features. But it's, you know, the ears are great too, and you know, so that is what we want to do. In
What blows
fact,
my mind is the lighting, the fact that there's no ring light or
Right.
flash
Right.
with it, and yet it gets such great crisp picture. Like right now, I have my ring light on behind it because if I didn't, I would be dark. It's like
right?
that's a
Yeah,
big
there you go.
that's a big
Yes.
difference. So the fact that camera doesn't even have a light and yet it looks like it's well lit, that kind of blew my mind.
And it handles the hardest thing of all. Like I have all of these 7. I have 7 now. Really bright, high wattage lights that are on me, and
Right.
it takes a lot to get used to having those kind of lights around you. I mean, they'll give you a headache. They make it very
Yeah.
difficult when you're looking at a monitor.
Looking at
It's really
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and it
Yeah.
eliminates the need to do that. Now, it's not at the same level that I have a Canon R8 with a really high end lens that sits behind the teleprompter. That's probably $3,000 worth of gear that sits behind that teleprompter. This little guy ain't going to do that, but you don't need a teleprompter, and it will give you a screen that you can write your notes on if you put it on top of your laptop, you can write your notes on your laptop that you want to talk about so that you're prompted to cover all the points you wanted to make. Not a teleprompter, but it doesn't need to be.
No, actually, it is a teleprompter little software. I can literally layer the text over top the camera display and look straight into the camera.
Yes. Well,
So-
it is
awesome.
in the sense that the camera is above it and you're printing you don't have to mirror it.
Right.
In a teleprompter, the camera actually sits behind the mirror.
Yeah.
So I'm looking right now at that camera. I can't see the camera. It's sitting behind a mirror, but mirrors reverse everything. So we have a very high def, super bright monitor that is sitting on a tray beneath an angled mirror that is between me and the camera. And to do that, you have to have either very sophisticated software or an inverter box that keeps it inverts right to left.
Yep.
And so that's how you have and we're actually doing this show this way where it kept right side up, but it is inverted right to left. So I am looking at our show in a mirror in front of the teleprompter.
Okay.
So it's so That's different than what this is. This is you're writing on your screen, but it's the camera that's giving you the ability to write on the screen that is a visual representation of you on the show. So you're able to do this such that you're looking at the StreamYard feed in real time of you interacting with everybody on the show, but with your notes placed in front. So it works just like a teleprompter. It's a beautiful thing. That little camera, $118. What a deal. So, one of the things too, we should just briefly mention, fellas, is that what we've thrown out, and I think it is a really important request, is that everybody should be contributing. And one of the ways for everybody to contribute, of course, is in the chat capability. You can make comments on every blog we do. You can make comments on every blog post. You can make comments directly under a topic in the chat fields. You can comment on other people's comments in the chat field. So there's that. But we all have our expertise. Now everybody doesn't have the discipline and the extroverted nature to host a show. But we have at least 10 to 15 people who we know can host shows. And those individuals can pick a show. We have, the Yada Yada Book Club. We can have more than one of those, but a Yada Yada Book Club, and you pick a book, and every other, maybe it's twice a week, you do a chapter. And you talk through that chapter of a book, and then you go to the next chapter of that book. And you can have Yada Yada Book Clubs. And we have, well over 100 people that can be solicited to be co-hosts. But somebody with the rigor to say, I'm going to host this thing, I'm going to learn about StreamYard, I'm going to get my cameras, I'm going to get everything, and I'm going to send the links for the show to the cast. I'm going to coordinate what we're going to talk about, and we're going to have a regular schedule on this. And then we'll accommodate people's schedules. We'll have a regular schedule on this. I listed a bunch of people that I thought would be really effective co-hosts. Now, there may be many or hosts of those programs. There may be many more. I just don't know you as well as maybe I should. But we're not running this like a cult. I'm not trying to control anybody's lives. I'm not trying to bring anybody away from their family. Like it was, we were heard two people say that they were told when they started listening to Yahweh that somebody wanted their money and said, you need to leave that guy. We don't ever do that. Somebody, asked me for, what do you think? My husband or wife doesn't agree with this. What should I do? And I said, way above my pay grade, man, or woman or man. I'm not even going to comment on that. What you do in your personal life is up to you. I'm not going to give you job advice. I'm not going to give you investment advice. I'm not going to ask you to do anything with your life. And so, it's just the opposite of what you would expect of somebody who's trying to be controlling. And that's just our approach. But in this case, I think it's totally appropriate to say we can be far more accessible as a family. We can be far more independent of the guide that has got us to this point. If we have Yada Yada Book Clubs, we have Thinking Torah, we have Covenant Family, and whether Covenant Family or Loving Torah is the title you want to operate under, but it is, as Kevin has described, it's tell your story. Let's let everybody that's part of this family tell their story. How they got here, what their aches and pains have been, what they had to forego, what they gained in return, what they particularly like, what they have found that has been helpful in their lives, how other people have responded to them, what they've learned in reading, what they've learned in here. Do a the guy that of course would be spectacular at that. The two people, Matt, you'd be one because everybody wants to be part of the Matt fan club, and so you'd be great at it. And Shannon, who has met everybody in person, he'd be great at it, and he has big empathy. I mean, that's a man that has huge empathy. He'd be great at it. So those that are have that kind of personality, go after it.
Yeah, I think Shane
you know,
and I would be a good match on a show for sure. I think that would be a good fit.
Yeah, but you know, we can have more than one of them, and you know, so everybody can host their own group too. So there's even the possibility of that. And then I gave just the people that I know that I thought would be really good co-hosts. But you know, I know how articulate and disciplined Mariah is in her speech, and I understand with her husband becoming covenant, they are a really impactful couple now, and so it's perfect for them to host a show. It's perfect for Rich to host a show. It's perfect. Rich says, "Huh? Wait a minute, oh no, I'm gonna." I don't know about that. You know, Perry can host a show.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, there we go. So, I just think that's the right way for us to go, and to be able to, we'll present them all under one of the tabs on the homepage, and it just makes everything so much more accessible, so much friendlier, approachable, richer.
As you talk about this is exactly what the 80 or so, you know, that we have a sense of now are going to be doing in Shabbat. This is exactly how we're going to be operating in the Shabbat. This is our practice. This is our auditioning. This is us showing that, hey, yeah.
I would go one step. I'd go one step beyond that. That is what we're going to be doing in the Shabbat. This isn't an audition. This is what we're going to be doing in the Shabbat.
We're going to continue doing
start it.
Yeah.
Because this is going to play beautifully over the next 7 years in the time of Israel's troubles. And it's the same reservoir of valuable contributions that where somebody can say, you know, I am not ready to do an exegesis on the participle form. Participle form just isn't going to trip my trigger. You know, I've heard some neat things about the niffle, but the niffle and I just are not ready to relate to each other yet. You know, the cohortative sounds really fun and all, but you know, we're just not ready to be engaged. And so I can see how, you know, thinking Torah is not going to appeal to many people, but you know, to someone like Doe, who's very thoughtful, Roger, who is particularly thoughtful, JB, who is really thoughtful, Mike Beati, who's really thoughtful, Jeff, Dr. Jeff. There are a number of people that's going to appeal big time to.
Yeah.
Leah, so somebody that would appeal to. Rich and Perry, Kevin, you. That's going to, and just because you're hosting another show doesn't mean you can't be a contributor to somebody else's show on that topic, right?
Great point.
Yeah, I just think that would be, and it's a marvelous show, but there's other people. That's why I said, you know, the Loving Torah could just be, Loving Torah would be, let's share some of the most interesting characters.
Right.
You know, what do we think about Noach? You know, what would it have been like to have been in that situation? You know, what do we really think of Adam and Chava and what transpired in the garden, and talk about it in very human terms that apply to our lives, and
bring it to our own life and apply it.
Right.
Yeah, put us in the situation and go expand on that.
Yeah, exactly. This is the great stories. What it was like to be Shamuel. Why did the people choose Shaul to be king? You know, that was a democratic election. Why did they choose him? Or even examine aspects of Dode's life. Why did Dode run from him? You know, why did Dode have 10 years where he lived essentially as an exile in his own land? What was it about him that caused him to do that? What was it about Dode's upbringing, mother and father wise, that he chose really poorly and wives and was such a crappy father, lousy husband, crappy father? Why? And is it good that he was or bad that he was? I think it was wonderful that he was.
Oh, absolutely. The experience of it. Yes. The growth, absolutely.
the potential for all of us and the insights we get from God of him being the chosen one and the one who was able to fulfill Pesach and Matzah, and that is his opportunity to overcome, to achieve.
Right.
Uh,
Just as we learned, there's no real perfection is not real, and so if we're going to be looking at our Messiah, we can't be seeing him as perfect. We need to know that he had lows, just like all of us. He was human, and he had some really bad lows. But it shows that he went from that low of position to the highest possible position with God.
Right. Right.
And,
highest possible position. He was as low as it gets with God, and he ended up in the highest possible position. What does that tell you about your life?
So when you have personalizing, it says, well, for those people that a lot of times, because I have a lot of people that are questioning their own, whether they're going to be harvested or not, and these are people that are doing the work, and they're devoted, and they care, and I'm like, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, like, you know,
right. You're writing your own ticket.
Right, exactly.
You're engraving your own ticket.
Yep.
You know, God can put out the invite, but you have to write the RSVP. So you have sent it. You're sending in your RSVP, and you know, as Kevin, as you were saying, you know, if you were to say, okay, I know I'm supposed to be Shazak, but am I Shazak enough? I know I'm supposed to be Sadak, the TS versus the CH. I know that I'm supposed to be Shazak and which is courageous, and Sadak, which is right. But, you know, how would I grade myself on the scale here? Or does it even matter if I have a grade on the scale, so long as I'm engaged in progressing on the scale? So long as I'm going in the right direction on that scale, what does it matter where I am on the scale? I mean, because I've got a lot of time to progress on the scale. Just so long as I know there's the scale, and I know that I want to achieve and perform and be measured well on it. All I really have to do is know it's there and care about it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Make it a focus of my life. Make it, you know, what I wake. My first thought in the morning is Torah, and my last thought when I go to bed is Torah. You know.
Yes, that'll get it done. So
that's what
I
Note
think
says.
It's that'll get her done. So I think what we're saying is we are that heavenly host. We are the luminaries of the heavens. Just because he has identified a greater and lesser luminary, you notice that in most of those prophecies, he does a DC on us. He says that the greater and lesser luminaries are surrounded and supported by the other luminaries of the heavens, and it says so regularly when talking about them. So it proves the point that she was making. And it demonstrates that I think I'm right when I say we are those luminaries. Act like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Find your topic. Find your cast of characters. Get yourself set up. Do the tutorials that you need to do so that you can do this kind of a show. We're using. I'm not trying to run an advertisement for StreamYard, but it's not expensive, and I think it's exceedingly easy to use. And by the way, one of the things that would be a really good show is to do a series of shows on, so you want to vlog for Yah, vlogging for Yah. What kind of equipment you buy? How do you set it up? How do you choose a streaming site? We'd recommend StreamYard because it just would integrate with everything else we're doing. You can have an account for virtually nothing, or you can pay for a robust accounts, free, all the way up to paid accounts. Just because we use a paid account doesn't mean you need to, and just because we use a couple of $100,000 worth of gear here doesn't mean you need to go over $200 worth of gear. And you know, we're heretofore we have paid for virtually everything. It doesn't mean we should pay for virtually everything. And on the big ticket items, I'll foot the bill. We're going to get an avatar that's going to talk all the way through the book, and that's going to be thousands of dollars. I'll pay for it. But when it comes to getting yourself a tutorial for something and buying a couple of $100 worth of gear, it's not such a bad idea to make an investment. You still own it. We're not taking it from you. We're not trying to get you to give anything to us, but I think somebody puts in it a modest investment into what they're trying to do. I think that's a positive thing. And
it's simply an investment in themselves. I mean, that's how you have to look at. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And pick your topics, pick your co-hosts, the people that you like to be around, pick your time, and start doing it. Just do it. And you can promote it on the chat and say, we're going to go live at such and such a time. And you can pick we can come up with a host. I'd like to see us with another Rumble account so that we don't have to worry about anything, that we open another Rumble account, that it could be Kevin in your name. We open a Rumble account, and the entire purpose of that Rumble account is a repository for these things, because you have to have a social media platform that will stream them, where you can store them and that will stream them. And so we can choose something like that, and we can come up with a hashtag menu so that the program that Matt performs, and Matt may want to host his cats for all I know, but that his program has a discipline. It's a hashtag Matt Loving Torah episode 1 on some subject, and so he has a hashtag, and it automatically orders that video presentation on the website. So people don't even have to go to Rumble to find it. It'll automatically populate on our website with the proper hashtag. And we just open we need to have the Rumble account anyway. If we start reading Goddamn Religion, and we post some of the videos that we have and songs on Islam, we have to have a Rumble account anyway. And we have one, but it would be so much easier for the back end and the technology if we have a Rumble account that is just specifically for what we're talking about. We have no duplicate of anything that's already on one of the other sites. So no duplicates at all.
So just new stuff going forward, all the new vlogs and all the stuff that we do.
Well, yeah. All the new vlogs that aren't part of the current stream of vlogs. Because all the others we have a format for them. We just continue that format. But all this new stuff goes to a Rumble account. I think that's our plan. I think it'll make a tremendous difference in the appeal that we will have for Yisraelites during the time of trouble. They'll see that these people are real. This is genuine. No one's trying to fool anybody. You got 150 people that come with the same approach. No one's asking for their money. No one's asking for them to do anything with their lives. They're just encouraging me to read, and what they're asking me to read and listen to, they're offering for free. And what they're saying makes sense. And it's not about them. It's about Yahweh and what he originally said, going to the oldest sources, but warmed up. Not clinical, warmed up. The way that Yahweh did it, Yahweh could have continued to speak directly and blown everybody away, or he could speak through Moshe, who had his strengths and weaknesses, and to work through Dode, who we know had his strengths and weaknesses. But God's preference is to approach us through people. It makes him more accessible, and that's what this would do.
That's exactly what this would do. It would, for the newcomers, new people finding the information, they wouldn't just be listening to you and where they're like, oh, this guy could be a crock, whatever. Where they could just
a crock or whatever.
If they're trying to deny it, if they're not trying to watch it. Whereas if they're watching where it's other people's stories and how they all relate to the Torah and how they all came to know Yahweh, and it makes it more real when people see the real stories behind the people, and it's not just the one person, the leader that people are seeing. Right.
Because everybody ultimately has the same story. which is that
Mhm.
somebody or something garnered their attention, and they were drawn to it. And when they went there and started reading, what they read was so compelling, so life transforming, so unlike anything they'd ever seen, and yet checked out on every level, and that there was nothing but giving there.
Mhm.
And everybody went through that exact same process. And I think that if you had 150 testimonials to that extent, that would be exceedingly reinforcing for somebody who is approaching and say, okay, what do I know? Because if you were to go to an AI is going to be appeal to popularity and say, and so they're going to pick up on all the naysayers because they outnumber those who enjoy the truth, love the truth, by a huge margin. I thought it was interesting, by the way, Kevin. You did your definition of a cult, but of
Cult,
course, the
yeah.
definition of a cult today, if you ask for a definition of something, what you're getting is an AI.
Yeah.
This is not a thoughtful, intellectual definition. It is a safe, programmed recitation of huge varieties of information. And when you do that, that's why when Perry would originally come to me and he says, I asked the AI for this, that, and the other thing, and he was so pleased with what he'd come to, and I said, oh my God, I can read the first 3 paragraphs, and I look at 80 pages, and you lost me, because what the AI does is just keeps throwing stuff out because somebody said this, somebody said that, somebody broadened it, and you ultimately have a definition of a cult that is very much like the definition of genocide that is published now by the International Criminal Court. And
Right.
so the International Criminal Court has a definition of genocide that would apply to any 2 or 3 children in a sandbox. There is somebody that's
Yeah.
genocidal every time that 2 or 3 children are in a sandbox. They would absolutely violate an aspect of that genocidal code because it's written that way. The cult definition is that you wrote is that any 2 or 3 people having a cup of coffee together would be in a cult. If they agree on something, our whole world is always me and them, right? That is how we cognate the world. Your whether it's your political party, your religion, your ethnicity, your geographic location, your age, your gender. We have so many ways to divide us from somebody else. Conservative, liberal, religious, secular. There are just a host of ways to do that. And Hashem versus Yahweh. There are billions of ways that we cognate the world. And we do have to have a point of separation. Otherwise, we're nothing. If we try to say we are the amalgamation of all things, we are nothing, because the very covenant says we need to be called out of man's morass. So that would make everyone who listens to God part of the covenant cult. All right?
Yeah.
By that definition, we're called out, and we have a we-them mentality by instruction of Yahweh himself. And Sadak, truth, MF, truth, means more to us than anything else. And so by that definition, if you are keen on evidence and reason and deducing what is true, then you would automatically fall under that definition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would go to the point of saying that a cult can be defined in the simplest terms. And the simplest terms are exploitive. You're in a cult if you're being exploited. Doesn't matter how many people are doing the exploiting, or how long they have been doing it, or how many people are exploited, or what the name of that cult is, whether it is a kingdom, an empire, a religion, a conspiracy. A cult is a place where there is an where people are exploited. And people are exploited for reasons of control, which is power, sex, or money. Those are
Right.
the three reasons to do it. We see in most conspiratorial environments, it's control. They want to control other people so they think like them, so they justify their salve for their useless lives. And that's the control mechanism. In religion, it is total control for money. And empires and kingdoms, it's sex, power, and money. Look at Muhammad. I mean, it was sex, power, and money. That's the formation of Islam is the exact definition of a exploitive cult. But so was the creation of Roman Catholicism, sex, power, and money. And it's still driven by that. So my definition would be really simple. Is somebody being exploited for the purpose of sex, power, and money?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then it's a cult. If the answer is no, then you're creating a box that doesn't belong to them, but may belong to the person who is projecting it.
You're right.
Something to think about. But I think many things can be boiled down to that. You know, when you're using the term genocide, and everybody wants to convey that Israel is genocidal, and it's not true. But the Muslims against Israel have been genocidal for 14 centuries. Absolutely true that they have been genocidal, and the facts are overwhelming, and that Islam has imposed apartheid. So genocide and apartheid, the things that are accused of Israel has never been. And
Right.
I mean, throughout its history has never been and will never be. And yet the Muslims and the Marxists both, who wish to carve up Israel, exterminate Jews, and eliminate Israel, are practitioners of genocide and apartheid. I mean, look what happened under Mao and in China. That was genocide and apartheid. Look what happened under the Bolsheviks and Russia. Genocide of huge numbers of people, particularly Christians, in that genocide, and then apartheid. You were either part of the party or you had no rights. And Islam, it is the most gross expression of it. You look in the first 100 years of Islam, they murdered 1/3 of the Earth's population, and enslaved, robbed, and pillaged, raped another 1/3. 400 million people between those two things. That is genocide. That is apartheid. You look at the Empire of Rome, genocidal, imposed apartheid, their caste system. In fact, every civilization, bar none, until the last couple of 100 years, imposed apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were genocidal on their neighbors, but almost all of them, in fact, I think you could say all of them, imposed apartheid. There were, different rules for different people.
I don't know. I'm a little unfamiliar with the American history. I know the Native Americans were slaughtered en masse, but were they, when they were sit on reserves, was that a segregation or a apartheid? Would that count?
Yeah, both. Yeah, both. The native tribes of the Americas were decimated upon the arrival of the Roman Catholic Spanish. Within 100 years of the first Roman Catholic Spanish conquistadors and others, including their priests, the native populations of what we're calling now the Americas was decimated by between 95 and 98%. Between 95 and 98% of the native populations were dead within a century of their arrival. That, my friend, is genocide. And I think we ought to define words that they carry that kind of context. What the Muslims did in the first 100 years of Islam, genocide. What Mao Zedong did, genocide. We had Trump over in China. Mao is not a hero. He was a scumbag. What the Mongols did, genocide. What the Romans did, genocide and apartheid. And so we need to know what the terms are and apply them appropriately. What Europeans did, and I'm not going to say the Nazis, European Christians did to Jews and to gypsies during World War II, absolute genocide and apartheid. So yes, the native populations of the Western Hemisphere experienced apartheid and genocide. They were given no rights. They were hauled into essentially concentration camps. So what was done to them in the name of religion and politics was abysmal.
Yep.
You know, America has absolutely no claim to these lands. And to lecture the rest of the world on what they can and cannot do, this country has a hideous past. It's not glorious. You can't make America great again. It was despicable, and it is despicable. And you just need to deal with reality. That is the reality of it. Your ignorance of it doesn't change it any.
Right.
And your current leader, if you are Make America Great Again, is the most despicable man who has ever lived. And it doesn't appear that a single one of you is wising up. None of you seem to be capable of processing information rationally or morally. But yeah, that's
Right.
that is the problem. And we just, as people, have lost the capacity to be moral, to be thoughtful. That's why we did a series of programs on, do people actually have a Nasama anymore, which is the God-given conscience. And it appears that the preponderance of people either do not have one, or
not
it is
functioning.
so flabby that they don't know how to use it. And it's
Right.
particularly true of the ultra-religious, ultra-political, or the ultra-young. Those under 30, those who would call themselves Christian, Muslim, or Marxist, their minds are mush. Sorry, but
Garbage.
it's just true. Yep. All right, let's look at a few items on our news, shall we?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So there have been a number of reports out recently that are revealing that the Muslims that perpetrated the Alaska flood attack on Israel, southern Israel, and particularly in the kibbutzim, were sexually perverted. They were sadistic. Screaming Allahu Akbar, they were sadistic. They were rapists. They tortured their victims, and they were literally there to humiliate. In Islam, Allah claims that a non-Muslim has no rights to live, is totally inferior, and women have no rights, and therefore the Muslim thinks that it is appropriate for them to humiliate them, to abuse them, to savage them, because that's the mentality of Allah and Muhammad. And so they did. But my point is, do you know why? Do you know why? And that why, when I asked, do you know why the 4,000 Muslims and tenny rompers that came in from Gaza into Israel on 10/7 of 23, do you know why their overriding goal was to humiliate? And do you know that it's not just an Israeli report that says, oh, by the way, when you contact the survivors, this is the unifying story. Sinwar's last message to them told them to be savages, to inflict such hostility, such terror, that would be the primary goal. The primary goal wasn't captives. It wasn't killing. The primary goal was to inflict terror, to enrage the Israelis. So I'm asking, do you know why? And there's two answers to why. And I would be surprised if there was even 1 in a million Israelis that understand either why.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a stab at it. Why don't you take the first one there, Kevin? Why do you think their goal, their purpose, and what they achieved was to humiliate Jews?
Well, the purpose of humiliation was to draw Israel into their exact response, to absolutely annihilate, to lose their mind and annihilate Gaza. That's the why the humiliation. Why
That is
they
correct.
were why were Muslims okay with humiliation and this as a tactic? It's because of Islam, because of the Quran, because it is this is exactly what Muhammad instructs them to do.
Correct. Well, both of those are spot on. And if you don't know those answers, which I don't think there's 7 people in Israel that could answer either of those 2 questions, they were played. Israelis are so proud of what they did in Gaza. And yet, the morning of 10/7, I wrote that they were going to invade Gaza, that they were going to destroy Gaza. And by destroying Gaza, they were going to destroy themselves. And that at the end, there would be no change in Hamas, that you cannot beat a religious zealot that wants to die killing you with bullets and bombs. You make more of them. And so I said, there is no chance that you will succeed and a guarantee that you will fail and that you'll turn the world against you when you fail by invading Gaza and destroying it. And they did that very thing. They were played to do that thing. And the reason we know that, not only did Sinwar write it and say this was the purpose, but in addition to that, they already had amongst their Marxist supporters that are funded by the Qataris and the United Arab Emirates and the Saudi Arabians, already positioned across America in the universities to go into the streets and scream genocide at Jews and apartheid to Jews and Palestine will be free before Israel even responded. While Israel was a victim of rape and torture and kidnap and mass murder, these slimes of people, these Marxists in the universities across America and the Muslims funding them and the Muslim students and taking advantage of America, were already positioned with their signs and their marches to condemn Jews who were the victim of 10/7. And so, yes, Israel was played. The Marxists, by the way, were also played in their response. What they did is shameful, and they still can't recognize it. But Israel was played into the response that it perpetrated, and as a result, Netanyahu should be tried, convicted, and I'd end his life. I think he's that damaging. I think I can't think of anyone who has done more damage to Israel than Netanyahu has.
What I find pretty
yeah.
I was going to say, what I find pretty amazing is the fact that your open letter to Israel pretty much outlined everything that the reasons why the Muslims did it, and it outlined it months or years before the Sinwar note came out. So when the Sinwar note was revealed, it was already known to us. It was already something that you had outlined in great detail. So it wasn't a surprise to us, but it was surprising that we got to see it and it was revealed to show that, yeah, Yada was right. This is exactly what he said and why. And
I was able to tell everyone that what happened on 10/7 was a reenactment of Kabar, a morning attack against a Jewish farming community with rape, kidnapping, torture, mass murder, and arson, where Allahu Akbar was screamed. The Alaska flood is indeed a reenactment of Kabar. And if you don't know what the Muslims did at Kabar, or why they did it, and why they were genocidal, why they were terrorists, why they were a criminal enterprise and engaged in thievery, and you still believe that Islam is a quality religion that should be tolerated and that it's a peaceful religion, or that numbskull yesterday, the 5 reasons I became a Muslim, you're just an ignoramus. And being an ignoramus is fine if you go off and drool in your own little corner. But when you drool and vomit all over social media because you're an ignoramus and you're immoral and you're ignorant and you're irrational, that's an entirely different story. Because I had written the 5 books on Islam called Goddamn Religion, and I had translated the entire Quran, and I had ordered it in chronological order, and I had set it into the context of Muhammad's life, I knew exactly what Muslims were going to do before they did it. And then when they did it, I could explain exactly what their goals were. and I could tell you what's going to happen next, and I have. And then I could tell you, because I've studied the Jews, because I've studied the Torah, and I've studied the prophets, I knew exactly how they were going to respond, and they did. And I could tell you why it was going to fail, and I did. And then I could tell the Jews and Israel precisely what they needed to do. 5 things that they needed to do that would have an entirely different outcome. And I told them they wouldn't do any of them, but should they do those, that they would never experience terror again, that they would live peacefully in their land. They would know their God again. And I said, yeah, I know they're not going to listen, but the least I can do. It was almost a 200-page open letter.
Yeah.
Read it, listen. And it turned out to be prophetic, including me telling you when the next Alaska flood is going to occur.
Right.
And who's going to perpetrate it, and how many participants are going to be, and how it's going to be conducted, and why Israel continuing to double down on more squadrons of F-15s is insane, and why they continue to have Netanyahu lead that country is insane, and why their dependence as a vassal of Donald Trump is insane. Everything they're doing is crazy. Or the very fact that they're trying to create a congenial environment for Muslims and Christians to coexist with Jews, when anti-Semitism was conceived by Christianity. Anti-Semitism's wellspring is the Christian New Testament, where Jews were falsely accused of killing the false Christian God. And that is the basis of it. And you need to understand that your enemy is Islam. It's not Hamas. It's not Hezbollah. It's not Iran. It's Islam. And until you can process that, you can't safeguard your country. So that's a lot to say about one post, isn't it, my friend?
It was
That's the reason we have to
well worth it. It was well pointed because, no doubt that absolutely this is their shub moment. They need to get their act together if they want to survive what's coming. This is the shub for shub moment for them.
Yahweh has made it abundantly clear that the last 7 years prior to his return with Dowd is going to be hellacious. That begins on the 22nd of this month. What is that, 8 days from now? 9 days from now?
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow, 8 days from now. You're entering the worst time in your history. Far worse than the assaults by the Assyrians. Far worse than the wars against the Philistines. Far worse than the enslavement by the Egyptians. Far worse than the harassment by the Greeks. Far worse than the 3 invasions by Rome. Far worse than the Muslim onslaught, than the Mongols and the Crusaders, and far worse than the Holocaust. 2 out of every 3 Jews are going to die over the next 7 years, according to the prophets. How often have the prophets been wrong?
They're not.
They wouldn't be prophets.
0.
0. They wouldn't be prophets
Never.
by definition. Yeah.
Never. This is what you're entering. And you're entering it for the very stated reasons that God has stated, which is that you're ignorant of who your God is. Hashem's not going to save you. There is no Hashem. God's He doesn't want you to have any religious affiliation. You need to toss the rabbis out on their ear. You need to completely distance yourself from Judaism. Rather than defining what it is to be a Jew with Judaism, you need to scrub that religion free from your soul. You need to throw away the Talmud and every influence that it has, kosher dining laws, the Shabbat rules, all of it has to go. All of it. And you need to return to the Torah, Yahweh's Torah, the 7 Moed Mikra, of which you don't know how to celebrate even one of them. You need
to return to. They don't know what that is. Yeah.
They don't even know what it is, much less what they represent, or who fulfilled them, or who will fulfill them, or what dates they will be fulfilled. You know, Maimonides lied to you when he gave you the calendar that was based upon the sanctification of the moon and the magic number 19, because he also lied to you. He happened to be a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
You're off by 197 years. You got 7 years left. And that 7 years is going to be hellacious. And you need to get your act together. And it's shub for shub. You either return to Yahweh now, or you are not going to survive this next 7 years. This is no kidding. And God knows you well enough to know that you were so belligerent towards him and to Moshe during the Exodus, and you've gotten no better since that time, that unless there is literally no chance of survival, no possibility whatsoever that your IDF will save you, that your political party will rescue you, that your religion will somehow intervene with Hashem for you, until you get to the point where you know that none of them have any value and they're all counterproductive and God despises them all, and you return to him on his terms, you're going to be caught up in it. And it's going to be really, really bad. So we're here to share his message with you. And the reason it's us here sharing Yahweh's message from his Torah and his prophets with you is because there was none of you who would even listen to him. How bad is that? Why do you think that the Torah speaks of an Akar, an observant foreigner who's going to save the world as it tumbles back into the conditions experienced in Sodom and Gomorrah? You've read that part of the Torah? Are you familiar with what Moshe said about the arrival of the Nakar as the world spins out of control back into the conditions of Sodom and Gomorrah and torches itself? Why do you think he had to say that? Why do you think the commencement address of the Home for Yahweh's Name on the Temple Mount, which you don't even respect enough to carve those stupid Islamic trophies off of it, why do you think he went right back to that Nakri and said, this observant foreigner is going to speak to you in the end? And he didn't listen to what he has to say. Why do you pay no attention to that? Why don't you read the book of Yeshaya? It's filled with hundreds and hundreds of prophetic references to this, including an entire chapter devoted to the Choder, of which is only one person in all of human history that meets the criterion. Why do you ignore all of that?
Yeah, they're not even looking for the Nakar.
No, why are they not looking for the man from Edom who Yeshaya, the great prophet, says is going to save many from in the end? Why are you searching for an unnamed Messiah when there is no prophecy about a Messiah coming back in the end? Now, the fact is that Dode has many titles, and one of his titles is Mashiach, and he is returning, but you don't even know it's him.
Right.
And there is no just standalone prophecy that says, oh, Messiah is returning. The Savior, sorry butts. There is none. And yet you're focused on a unknown Messiah coming back to save your tuchus, and you pay no attention to the 1,000 prophecies that God said are important for you to understand, including those of the Choder and the Nakri and the Zeroah and the Bashar and the Adamah Parah, who, by the way, it's not a red and girly cow. You're paying no attention to the man from Edom. And therefore, you're paying no attention to God. You don't even know his name. You erased it. You hate it. How do you think that suits God, for you to spit on him by erasing his name, and you won't even say it? All right, that's my conclusion to that point, my friend. I think I should probably figure out a way to put my laptop on the other side, so then I look and gaze at a closer view. It looks like I'm looking at you guys as opposed to looking away from you, or we'll flip the screen somehow to make that possible. But when I'm looking here, it actually looks on that screen like I'm looking away from you, and that's not the case. I'm not giving you a cold shoulder. All right, so this next is, after all of this, no, we're not playing. No, we don't want to go. No, we're not sending ships. No, we're not sending planes. No, we don't want to play. You're an idiot, Donald. We have now inclination from the UK that they want to go play, and they want to go send ships to Hormuz. And that tells me two things. One is that Starmer has lost confidence. If there were no confidence vote right now in the parliament, he'd be out of power. The UK, they have lost faith. I think his approval rating is in the low 20s. Second, so they're doing something desperate. And the one thing that causes unpopular political figures to stay in power, There's only one thing: war.
Yeah, war.
War is the one thing that keeps unpopular political figures to stay in power, which is why with Donald Trump there will always be war.
Yeah.
And so that's the motivation. But what I want to tell you is the UK doesn't have a navy. The UK's navy at the beginning of World War II and for the century prior to that was larger than the rest of the world's combined. It was the dominant power of the sea. Overwhelmingly bigger, more powerful and dominant, with more ships and sailors than all of the rest of the world combined. No one could compare to the Navy of the United Kingdom. And with lots of help, the UK didn't win the war, not by any stretch of the imagination, but they were on the winning side. Had it not been for Russia, they would have been on the losing side. Had it not been for the supplies provided by the United States, they would have been on the losing side. But they ended up on the winning side, but they were so strung out. They had spent what America is doing now in trying to fight a war everywhere, trying to fight wars against China, Russia, Ukraine, Cuba, Venezuela. They're so strung out that they lost it all. And that's what happened to the UK. They lost it all. They went from upwards of 1,000 ships in their navy. Now, if they've got 10 that float at any one time, that would be a big deal. And they went all in on these two super carriers, and I don't think one ever gets out of dry dock, and the other one kind of gets its feet wet every couple of 3 months, but has to come right back in. It's kind of like the U.S. Gerald Ford that can't make the toilets or the laundry work, and therefore can't be deployed. They don't have a navy anymore. Their ships are old. They're antiquated. The sailors are disillusioned. They're poorly trained. The UK is not even a paper tiger anymore. The same thing can be said of France, by the way. That they simply don't exist. NATO is a illusion, and the UK is delusional. So the UK could send its entire navy into the Strait of Hormuz, and the fast boats of of Iran would wipe them out in about 15 minutes. The U.S. can't send its navy ships into the Strait of Hormuz, and it won't. But talk about being delusional. We're going to stand in front of this flag and pretend that we are somebody? No, you're nobody. And by the way, It could not happen to worse people. I mean that sincerely. What the Brits did in the Balfour Declaration, what the Brits did in retaining the ethnic slur of Palestine, what the Brits continue to do in terms of fostering anti-Semitism, it couldn't happen to a worse group of people. What you did in India, what you did in China, you're revolting, and it's come back to haunt you. Oh, that's meaner. What do you think, guys?
It's come back to haunt them in a Muslim mayor, primarily Muslim London, things of that nature. That they are getting a taste of what it's like to be colonialized. So that word they like to toss about.
I've been in London many times. The last time I was there, it was like Pakistan. And I've been in 175 countries around the world. I know what the world is, so I'm not naive in this regard. I couldn't wait to get out, and I made a promise I would never return. Now, the only thing that bothers me ever so slightly about that is that as I used to have a hobby, it was to hit a uncontrollable spear with ill-adapted tools, implements into an inaccessible target. And they call that sport, four-letter word, golf. And there are some golf courses there, like Old Head, that are marvelous and gorgeous. And so I regret not being able to play them. But I gave up on golf when this job got to be too serious.
Right.
But I regret that. Beautiful, beautiful places. Weather's really crappy, so that part wasn't so good. And I don't like my beer warm. So, and I have a lot of Irish Celtic blood in me, but the worst of the Brits are the Irish. They are the most repulsive anti-Semites in the world today. So, I can tell you I am what you are, and I despise you. And so does God. So shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. Go away. Put your tail between your legs. You were disgusting when you had power, and now you're impotent now, and you remain disgusting. Go away. What do you really think, Craig? Damn, I wish you, I wish you'd state your opinion and not be so mealy-mouthed about all these things.
Right.
Don't say.
Says the bull.
So, evidently, the U.S. in its continued stay in Iraq, which is stunning in of itself. We heard Noah speak of the fact. I think it was Noah that heard. No, I think it was Roger that spoke of the fact he heard me at the last minute on Coast to Coast, which is a 3-hour show that starts at 12 midnight, runs to 3 o'clock in the morning. And I did 4 shows, all 3 hours, 4 times with both the hosts of that program. And the purpose was in 2 of them, was to explain exactly what Islam is and what they're trying to achieve. And in 2 of them was to explain why what America was doing in Iraq and Afghanistan was asinine, that we were making a bad situation worse. And I was saying that bluntly and boldly as I just criticized the UK, in fact, even more so, over 12 hours of talk radio, and the most popular talk radio show in the world at the time, when no one else would say it. That we were wrong to go into Afghanistan, we were wrong to go into Iraq, and that in both cases we were making a very bad situation infinitely worse, and there'd be no resolution for the mistake we were making. The United States still can't get out of Iraq. We're still there. We gave Iraq to Iran, and we created the Islamic State. We literally transformed what was Al-Qaeda into the Islamic State and gave Syria to the Islamic State through the Awakening Program. Petraeus was the general who instigated that. It was asinine what we did, and I knew the truth because I took the time to study it, and I articulated it. Well, we're still there. And so under the cover of American bases, we gave sanction to the U.S. I shouldn't say we, but the U.S. gave sanction to Israel to create a base near the Iranian border so that they could do invasions and perpetrate all manner of harm against Iran. Now, I'm no fan of Iran. I'm no fan of Iraq because of Islam. But I'm telling you that everything Israel has done has been counterproductive. And I care about Israel. So when Israel does things that are counterproductive, it bothers me a great deal. And their attacks on Iran have been counterproductive. You cannot claim that you're doing this as Trump is now saying and Netanyahu is saying to keep Iran from having a bomb. You cannot make that claim. Now, I think I'm the most, the best informed, most overtly bold spokesperson on making certain that everybody knows that when Iran risked everything, their economy and total isolation, to refine 1,000 pounds, 400 plus kilograms of uranium past 60% fissile purity of uranium-235, and built a tritium plant as the trigger. That there's only one function to do that. There's only one reason, and that's to build a bomb. There is no other purpose. Everybody's saying, oh, they wanted it for civilian purposes. BS. You cannot use uranium enriched past 3 to 5% for civilian purposes. And you heard saying that to generate power in a country that floats on oil and gas would never use a nuclear power plant to boil water. Right. That's what they do. They boil water. You're burning off the gas because the oil has more value to you. You can use that gas to run a turbine and boil water to generate electricity a hell of a lot more efficiently than you're ever going to blow atoms apart. So the only
Right.
purpose of all of that was to build a bomb. And they say, oh, you can use 20% for scientific research. Yeah, you could use a pinhead and a thimble at 20% for scientific research and a little mini reactor. But we're talking about 1,000 pounds of uranium-235 to 60% fissile purity. It only has one function, and that is to build a bomb. So all of you nutcases out there that are saying, Iran wasn't trying to build a bomb, you're crazy. Now, Iran had done everything they needed to not only build the bombs and deliver them. And whether or not their 60% fissile purity is now 87 to 90%, I can't tell you. If I were them, I would have taken it to that. But the time and effort necessary to take it to that, in an area smaller than this patio that I have right here, you could take all of it to that in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Nothing. Just with the centrifuges you could set in this little patio right here. And you could run it off a Prius motor. That's how much electricity you need. And the Iranians have learned that if you're going to prepare against the Israelis and the Americans, what you do is you have duplicates of everything and you bury everything. And so everything is important to them. There are many versions of it, many locations, and they're all buried. And so there is a 0% chance that America or Israel could ever take it out. Now, both countries are bragging that they could send in troops. You know, we went in to get Colonel Uranium and called it a pilot rescue, and they failed miserably. And the Israelis are now, Netanyahu is bragging, we can do it. We're going to do it. Bull. It's distributed.
What are they going to learn? Last year they did the bomb on the Fordo or whatever, and claimed that they had
obliterated it.
All the nuclear program, but as we could tell, it didn't even do much damage. And when you see like the outlines of the Iranian underground stuff, it is so low. Our bombs aren't getting down there that we're not really doing anything to affect.
That's why they had that mission to Isfahan. They wanted to go and actually go underground in those tunnels because our bunker busters penetrate to about 200 feet. And they won't even go 200 feet with reinforced concrete when the reinforced concrete deflects them at certain angles away from the target. And so, no, it wasn't even bothered, much less destroyed. And yet the Israel and Trump were bragging that they had destroyed it, and now they had to go to another war, and they can't even, after spending $100 billion, there's no dent in it, and they still can't resolve that situation. Here's the bottom line to all of this. If Iran wanted to have a nuclear bomb at any time in the last 20 years, they would have had one.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't build a nuclear bomb because in the past they didn't want one. They wanted to be in a position where they could, if they needed to, for their own survival. You pushed them to that. But they chose not to. So, Donald Trump, you are not the catalyst for keeping Iran from having a bomb. You are the catalyst for assuring they will have one. Yep. Because prior to you invading them twice, they did not have one, even though at any time over the previous decade, if they wanted one, it would have taken them 2 weeks to finish it, and there's nothing you could have done about it, and they had the delivery systems. So the facts are, you did not prevent them, you encouraged them. Now they know that the only way to avoid future attacks is to have a nuclear warhead. And by the way, the very fact that there is communication about we're open to giving up the 405 kilograms of enriched uranium, and we'll put it in custody of the Russians, for example, in safekeeping. The only reason that discussion exists now, because they already have a nuclear weapon. That's why it exists now. Whether it's given to them by the Russians, the Chinese, or by the North Koreans, they already have one. Or whether they just finish their own. And whether they just continue to enrich uranium so that they can give you the 405 kilograms, and they had plenty to convert into a bomb. They could make 10, 15 bombs. But guess what? They don't want to use them. They've never wanted to use them. Their approach is far better. Control the straits, which they do without a nuclear weapon, and they could never use a nuclear weapon to do that. Between mines, fast boats, and missiles, they control the strait, and there's no way to stop that. And then you've got the long-range missiles and drones to take out targets of every American base in the region and Israel. There's no reason for them to deploy a bomb other than and now you can't attack us vis-a-vis North Korea because we have one. Yeah. And by the way, they have one. You killed the leader who put a fatwa, a religious decree, against building a bomb. He couldn't go against his own religious decree, his own fatwa. You killed him. You maimed his son. You took out every member of their family, and all of the younger generation says, damn right, we're going to have one because we have to stop these idiots from attacking us.
Yeah.
So we made this mess. Israel, the United States, you made this mess, and there's no getting out of the mess you made. And no, MAGA, you didn't win. You lost in every possible way. I don't have a strong conclusions on this either.
You wonder how much of this is being brought up between Xi and Trump in China this week, you know?
I know the answer to that question. Xi did not meet Trump at the airport. The headline on the party's central newspaper was the meeting with, I think it was Uzbekistan, the day that Trump's arriving. There's meetings with Uzbekistan and deals being done with Uzbekistan, and that is the headline in the official newspaper of China. And then on their website, on the central website of the People's Republic of China, there's not even a mention of his arrival. Then they had their Secretary of State and the spokesperson for Xi both spend an hour presenting China's position on Taiwan, which is the United States wants to interfere this. And our claim to Taiwan, it'll be a very bad day for the United States. The United States needs to know that we're an ally of Iran, and that's not going to change. The United States wants to come with all of its CEOs and see if they can cut a deal. We have no interest in that. Your unilateral tariffs were abusive. They were destructive to you. They meant nothing to us. We don't trust you anymore. We have no reason that we'd ever want to partner with you in that regard anymore. I don't know why you brought them, but you're wasting your time. Yeah, they've made it very clear as to they're dealing with a brat in a sandbox, throwing a tizzy fit. And they're not going to, they have no incentive in any way to capitulate and to be one of the numbskulls that says that Trump has cards or that Trump somehow has a relationship with Xi is, well, you have to be as stupid as the MAGA.
Yeah, nothing says you're more insignificant than not even mentioning your presence.
You're not even getting a mention,
Yes. So, listen, the United States is still a consumer market. The United States still has a potent military, even if it doesn't know how to use it and shouldn't be using it. The United States is still the reserve currency in the world, although that is changing very rapidly. Because the United States is still a market, while China is on this exponential rise, it is not in China's interest for America to be destroyed.
Right.
It would, at the time that China is on the fastest ascent of any nation in the history of the world, they want a stable, by the rules playing field, because it's a lay down hand that they win. And if America goes so asinine that there's a nuclear war or that there is a catastrophic economic meltdown because of the closure of the Straits of Hormuz, then that is a negative from China's point of view. Although they would be the winner, as would Russia, in that kind of an incident, there really are no winners in worldwide economic failure. or nuclear war. There are no winners. They would be the least affected losers. And so China doesn't want to poke the demon in the eye. So they'll say nice, they'll play nice, but they've made it very clear. We're not talking to you about Taiwan. We're not talking to you about Iran. No, we're not going to partner with you. No, we're not going to help you. Our ally is Iran. You are therefore our enemy. And what you did on tariffs bit you in the butt. We're not going to talk to you about rare earths. They're ours. They're not yours. We're not going to give them to you so you can make weapons to try to attack us. You know, America only had one thing going for it, which was its Navy and its ability to project power around the world. At this point, the United States builds one ship every 5 to 10 years. China builds 300 ships a year. The United States doesn't even build cargo ships. We don't build oil tankers. We don't build cargo transport ships. And we build one military ship of consequence about every 5 years. China builds the largest, most sophisticated tankers, largest and most sophisticated cargo ships, largest and most sophisticated military ships, and they build them at the pace of 300 a year to one every 5 years. There was a period of time where America could say, well, you know, the North Koreans and the Japanese both had shipyards, and it was 3 countries that that together were 90% of the world's shipbuilding. Well, now, in the past year, China was almost 60% of the world's tonnage output of new shipbuilding, which means that Japan and South Korea have plummeted by comparison to China. But in terms of orders going forward, it's about 90-10. 90% of the orders for large ships going forward are being made by the Chinese. It's the game's over. I mean, and in every way you want to look, their currency is more stable, their government is more stable, the country is more productive, and they make the things that the world needs and wants, and the United States does not. The United States is nothing but a beggar and debtor nation that has lived way past its means for way too long. And and just as I said that it's all going to come back to bite the UK as it should, it's all going to come back to bite the United States. We've been belligerent, obnoxious, meddling. We are everything Isaiah 18 says about the United States, and it's all bad. And God despises the United States for what we have done, and particularly the way that the United States is going to be the great betrayer of Israel in the end. So it's going to be a rough week for Donald, although, you know, he'll put on his orange makeup and do his big smile and claim that we're winning. But he will have, this will be a miserable week for him.
Yep.
The humiliation kink. Are we going to cover this one or?
Oh no, yeah, no. We've done that. You know, this psychopaths. Sean Hannity. I mean, why would he have an audience after all this time? And he is just nothing but a clown cheerleader. I mean, you just wonder after a while, how far can these clown cheerleaders push it? And now he's a clown cheerleader without an audience, because the clown cheerleaders that have gone rogue on Israel and who have dumped Trump, he's not gone rogue on Israel and has not dumped Trump, but all the others have, and they've passed him like he was standing still. You know, the Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons. I mean, there's no comparison now between their audiences and his audience. You know, he's still playing in a world that doesn't exist anymore. And I guess he's not smart enough to realize that everybody that has stood beside Trump is trashed. He devours them. That man has no loyalty. Why would you show loyalty to him?
Right.
I haven't
What does
heard
the scrolling
a peep
finger
out of-
find there?
Yeah, I haven't
Go
heard
ahead.
a peep out of Sean Hannity for years, and it wasn't until you showed us his avatar the other day, his AI avatar, that I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah.
Hannity still exists. He's still around. He
Yeah, it
he
still
didn't
exists. Yeah,
retire?
yeah. Well, go ahead and read this. One side is either by I think it's by Plato, and it's all political
Uh-huh.
and religiosity, and the hero that dies at war dies for more than just his country, and and he's memorialized for all eternity. Let's look at Achilles and Odysseus, and then the other side is, yeah, tell that to the man whose gut has just been sliced by the spear, and the child that now has to eat every meal alone. And the person that told you the truth, you never heard of. And the one that lied to you is considered a great philosopher.
Great
But yeah,
thinker.
read those too.
Right.
Can you read them? I can't because it's too much
Yeah.
here.
Plato, a soldier who dies for his nation, dies for something eternal, something greater than his own small life. And then, oh my goodness, Truidices, ask him what was eternal when the spear entered his stomach. Ask him what was greater than his own small life, while his small children eat without him. Eternity is a comfort invented by men who will not be dying.
Mm-hmm. The man that told you the truth is the one you've never heard of. The one who is aggrandized is the one who lied to you. And the propaganda of you should honor your military and respect your troops. That is one of the great patriotic lies of all time. And it's the fact is that they're not fighting for God. God is not on your side. Those that died typically died at the hands of their own. You look at the soldiers of Rome. Rome was this mighty empire, right? Oh, the soldiers of Rome were mostly slaves. They were mostly captured from the communities that they attacked and subjugated. And you had to, if you were a fighting age, you had to commit to 20, 25 years in the Legion. And once in the Legion, you couldn't leave. And death was typically the only way out. And the life of a legionnaire was, unbelievably harsh. And no respect for them at all. You look at Sparta, the longest lived oligarchy / democracy, and their sons they beat up, they abused, so they would be tough soldiers, and they used them to capture everyone around them. So they had slave labor for everything else, and their women were nothing but manufacturing plants for the next soldier, and they were abusive to everyone. You want to go into the military and you believe the propaganda that you owe a debt to the military. Your freedom was not free. The least free institution in the country happens to be the military. What are you buying here? There is not life and death through death. There is no gain through destruction. The military has been a exceedingly negative influence on the country. It has drained its reserves. It has put it into all manner of wars that it did not belong in, and has never defended American freedom, ever. You can't find a single circumstance where the U.S. military has defended American freedom, ever.
Right.
And so the whole thing is a lie.
I was going to say the propaganda of patriotism, the fact that we all come up really brainwashed into being for your country, for your military. Thank you for your service. That's what, when you see a service member in public, people always say, thank you for your service. Really, it's like, that's a disservice, and not a disservice to the country.
First of all, it's not a service. It's not a service. They're paid for it. They volunteered for it, and they're paid for it. Yes, it's not a service. A service is what we're doing now. When you're offering something of yourself, and you're making the contribution to make the delivery system possible, and you're donating your time for free, and you're asking nothing of anybody in return, that's a service. What they're doing is not a service. It's not only a job, it's an extremely destructive and deadly job based on a pile of lies. And it robs the country that they are deployed by. And typically countries have large militaries because it ensures that the people stay subject to the political leadership. You cannot revolt in a country like America, where the military is this large, because the military will take you out.
Mm-hmm.
So they exist for the protection of the political elite. They exist for the enrichment of the military-industrial complex. We are in Iran because of the enrichment of the military-industrial complex. The Ukrainian war against Russia was on the behest of the greed of the industrial military complex. Our wars in Iraq made no sense whatsoever. They were fought on behalf of the pocketbooks of the military industrial complex and all of its bankers and investors and the like. This is what we do. The war on terrorism was exactly that as well. And the media will lie to you. The politicians will lie to you. Everyone will lie to you about how glorious this is, and they're playing you for a fool. It is the very nature of the American and European governance, where there's this illusion that the people choose their government. I'm telling you, your vote and democracy is nothing but smoke and mirrors for those that actually control the government and your lives and influence you. And it's getting infinitely worse now with social media and with AI, because those environments are nothing but deceptive. That is nothing but illusion. And the illusions that they promote are religious and political and patriotic illusions and conspiratorial illusions. They've created a trap now that is so bad, they're not going to even survive it. They didn't think it through. Yeah. The unintended consequence of the trap that they have created is going to devour them as well.
Yep.
This is Netanyahu. We talked about him saying that he can go take the Israel can.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead there, pal. See how that works out for you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The Board of Peace. Board of Peace. Mm-hmm. Board of Peace. Oh, yeah. We're going now. We don't need Hamas to resign. No. The fact they perpetrated 10/7 and raped and pillaged, and the fact that they cut off the arms of non-compliant Muslims in Gaza, the fact that they steal everything that went into Gaza to make life reasonable for those people, the fact that they use the concrete to build terror tunnels as opposed to homes or hospitals, the fact that they're a belligerent terrorist group. Not to worry, you can be part of the government. Sure. You know, they played so nicely with Fatah previously, didn't they? You know, we'll trust you. No problem. You just tell us that you're going to lay down your weapons. You can pick them up 15 minutes later and you can be part of that government. Yeah, well, and what are you going to do? Are you going to send in people to rebuild it with Hamas there? How's that going to work out for you? What are you going to do? Now that you realize that Israel spent 3 years destroying Gaza to eliminate Hamas, and at the end of it all, guess what? The obstacle is Hamas. And the fact Hamas is still there, still politically in charge, and still armed. And so you accomplished nothing, didn't you, Israel? You made yourself vulnerable. You isolated yourself from the world. You destroyed Gaza. And now you're tasked with feeding the people who want to kill you, who tried to perpetrate genocide on you. And you're tasked with feeding them. And now there's no solution because you cannot destroy them and they won't lay down their weapons and nobody knows what to do with them. And there's no restoring Gaza as a result. And you were the ones that destroyed it while you ruined yourself in the process. I thought you were supposed to be bright.
When we knew a few years ago that Jacob's trouble was coming, we had no idea that Israel was going to be a big proponent of its own destruction. And that, you know, we couldn't have foreseen that it was going to be Israel making the, going into attack Iran and stuff. Like, these are just situations that were not going to help Israel in any way. It's only going to hurt.
But, you know, if you look at Israel's history through the Torah and the prophets, haven't they always been self-destructive? Haven't they always been suicidal? Nothing's new in that regard. Let's make this one our last one, if we wouldn't mind, Kevin. There says to be a $3 trillion hidden bad debt issue with China. Okay, China is the industrial.
That makes me giggle. That makes me giggle. $3 trillion.
Let's say they have $3 trillion in bad debt, and they're the economic engine of the world. then what does that say about the United States with $40 trillion and debt, and you can't make diddly squat here? I mean, the only reason you still even make Teslas is because you put 100% duty on BYD EVs. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to make them. So you can't make squat. So you create nothing of value. You got $40 trillion worth of debt, and you want to squabble about China as the industrial engine of the world with $3 trillion of bad debt? I mean, come on, think it through. Now, what you see here, and it is true, that there is a housing issue in China where where China has great success with enterprise zones on making things, but it's still a communist collective government over all of that. So the factories that make cell phones and make laptop computers and make BYD cars, they are spectacular and they're efficient and they're very effective and they're cutting edge. But the government that oversees it all is a collectivized government, which means they haven't got a clue what's going on. And so it's the government says, well, mass housing, we'll build a bunch of buildings here. Well, people don't want to live in them. And so this is the blight of collectivization. The communist aspect of the government of China creates a mess like this of buildings everywhere that are unoccupied and decaying, while they build new buildings that are gorgeous and rise up quickly, but they still have the legacy of, well, dunderhead, because central planning does not work. Supply and demand does. Central planning does not. Incentive does. Dictatorships do not. And so this is this blend of a communist government over a free enterprise base of industry where one works and the other doesn't work. But I'm telling you, $3 trillion to the Chinese isn't a sniffle. Yeah. So, fun discussion, Matt and Kevin. I like the fact that today we were able to talk Torah topics intermixed with our various cues from the blog on the blog. I'm glad we spent more time on the website from yadayah.com. And what we're asking, I'm challenging you. I'm not dictating to you. I'm challenging everybody who is part of the Covenant family to pick a topic that you think you'd be good at. And if you think that you've got the wherewithal to be a host, which means that you've got discipline, I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to get the things I need, and I'm going to learn about StreamYard, and I'm just going to do it. I know I can do it, and I have my buddies that are part of the Covenant family, and reach out to them and say, I want you to be my co-host, and I'll organize a schedule and a topic to review. And then those of you who say, oh, I don't want that responsibility, but I'd really like to contribute, then pick a topic, pick a host, and join them. But I've thrown out a bunch of topics that I think would be great programming. You don't have to follow mine. Pick your own if you think there's one better. I've listed some people I think that, based upon what I know of them, would be quality hosts, and people that I thought would be quality co-hosts. But if you think that you've been wrongly listed as a co-host when you should be a host, or co-host when I listed you as a host, then, put yourself in the right category. And if you think, hey, he didn't even mention me and I'm ready to play, well, then great.
Right.
Do it. I'm serious here. It's time to contribute. And if you think you're going to be part of the group that is carried forward, then you better show that you're a contributor to the part that is going to be carried forward, because this is what we're going to be doing in the future. So start doing it. That's my advice to you. All I can do is give you advice, and I can, guys, we can lead by example. I will say, I've had we have a show. We're leading by example. Follow our example.
Yeah. I was gonna say, multiple people have been reaching out to me lately, and they're wanting to contribute more, and they've asked me what they could do, and they literally are wanting to take it seriously. And I basically said, for those that have asked me in the last few days, I told them, let's wait until after Shabua. I said, because I've still got a lot of stuff to do on my end, but if we're still here after Shabua, I would love to start working with them, training them, teaching them the AI stuff or whatever that they want to learn to do.
Why
Yeah,
wait?
why wait? Why wait? Because let's just say that the Shavua harvest. First of all, I want to talk a little about Shavua.
Okay.
Um, the primary designation for Shavua is not what everybody's focused on. We've got a group of 150 people that are all focused on am I going to be part of the harvest and it's going to happen now or then? Come on, first of all, I think it might be much less than that, but let's just use 150. 150 people, and you've got a world of 8.2 billion. And very few of those people, not very few, but most of the people are not Jewish. And nobody lives in Israel. God's focus is on Israel. God's focus is on his people. He's happy to have us Goyim work in this manner. And by the time that we become covenant, we cease to have a racial designation or an ethnicity in that regard. And souls carry no ethnicity. So when we're pared down to our soul and then empowered from there, the ethnicity doesn't matter. But right now in a physical world, ethnicity pursuant to Israel does. And 2 out of every 3 Jews are going to die over the next 7 years. Quantifying when that time starts and when that time ends is really important. Quantifying when you get a vacation is not.
Right.
So stop focusing on Shavua and Teruah from the harvest of, I want out of here, I hope I'm part of that group, and start focusing on what it means. This is the start of the most hellish period in Israel's history, and it starts in 9 days. And we are here as the buffer, as the lifeboat, as the lifeline to Israel, as the voice of Yahweh, and act like it. And that time ends 7 years and 4 months. And the reason it's 7 years and 4 months is because the Shavua is being fulfilled in its order as next, and then Teruah. And they are 7 years and 4 months apart because we're going from Shavua to Teruah, and that's the bookends of the time of trouble. Now, you want to talk about the harvest? Let's just say that it happens in 9 days, which I don't think is going to occur. Let's just say it happens in 9 days. The longest you're going to be away is 3.5 years, which is a blink of an eye. We're talking about an insignificant number of people for an insignificant amount of time. Why would you worry about that time away? Why wouldn't you focus on the time here and your contribution? Why wouldn't you approach it like I'm approaching it, which is to say, listen, it's your decision. You didn't ask my opinion on this. I'm going to give you my opinion because, well, it's the right thing to do is to share what I think we should do. And the first thing I'm going to say is, okay, this is great. I'm glad we're here. Wonderful. Love the weekend. I need to get back. There's stuff to do. There's souls to reach out to. Let's get back and let's get doing it. And he might say, yeah, kid, yeah, nice suggestion. Sit down, and enjoy your vacation. While you're right, you're also wrong. Israel needs to hit rock bottom before they're going to listen. So sit down and you want to be productive. There's lots you can do up here. But no, you're not going back down.
My philosophy is Yahweh
down,
saying. My philosophy is Yahweh saying, "Hey, kid, stay in the crib. How about you learn to hit the curve before I send you back?" I mean, we're going to be babies. Yeah.
Yes. Well, from a heaven point of view, a 7-dimensional point of view, we're going to be babies. But right now, we are the adults. We're the only adults in the room. And yes, up there, by comparison, we will be. But it's still, we were proof that Yahweh was right about humanity. We were worth it. But at the very most, you're going to be there for a short vacation so that you can come back here. And that 3.5 years before we enter the time of Sukkah is going to be the worst in human history. And you're going to need some fortitude, and you're going to need to be prepared, and you're going to need to hit the ground running. And so why would you wait? Hit the ground running. If you have practice, if you have experience, I've played every sport in the world, and I will tell you that if I were to take somebody off the street and say, I want you to play a shortstop, there's a 0% chance they're going to be able to perform. But if I've worked with you for a month and I've hit ground balls to you at shortstop, and I've taught you how to swing a bat, and I've taught you the game, and then you've played some games, then I could put you in, and you could actually, probably do okay.
Yeah.
But you need to get in the game. If you want to be in the game, get in the game. You want to be ready, practice. And so that's my view of the whole thing is stop focusing on your individual soul as to whether or not it's going to get a mini vacation, and focus on what the objective is.
Right.
And how many souls are at stake with that objective, and make a contribution and make a difference. Now, all I can do is give you advice. I can try to set an example. I can give you advice. I can share some teaching so that you can hit the ground running. I can provide, an owner's manual, if you will, for how you should go forward. But ultimately, it's got to be your own initiative.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of names on that and the members group of the website. I don't even know who you are. Now, though that's been true for a long time, and that's because of the way we do this. My job is to do what I do, and we have other people that do what they do, and that's how we are able to function as a family. And it isn't my job is not to babysit individuals. My job is to do what I'm doing. But I know who Kevin is. I know who Matt is. I know who Leah is. I know who Rich over here is. I know who are the real contributors. I know who put together that glossary in the end and took it all and made it something special. I know who put the effort in to make that. I know who put in the hours so that our vlogs and our blogs came up the way they were supposed to. Yeah, I know. I know what John Voight did behind the scenes. I know the contribution that Roger is making. I know the contribution that my friend Kirk has made through the years, and that JB has made through the years, and Dr. Jeff is intellect that he can contribute. I know these people because they have engaged. Perry and Rich did something extraordinary in terms of just moving here. I'm going to be devoted to this cause. Didn't ask them to. In fact, tried to discourage them, saying, it's it's an acquired taste to be here in an island like this. But yet, I know who they are because they stepped up and made a contribution. I'm not asking for anybody else to move, please. I'm not asking for anybody else. Please.
Unless you know something about pool pumps.
Yeah, well, if you know something about pool pumps, maybe, or you're really good at text to speech and making a virtual AI on the massive scale of 35 books, then come on down. Or you're really good with cameras, lights, microphones, and cables, and then sure, come on down. You got to look inside. Decide what's important to you.
Right.
What can you do such that in the end you are among the few that when they sit down next to Dode, or they sit down next to Moshe, or they sit down next to Yahweh, they get a hug, and they can look over and smile and say, we did good together. We did. I know that there's a lot of people here today and are enriched today, and that we're going to get to enrich over the next 1,000 years because we worked together. The collaboration was fun. The collaboration had benefit. I met a lot of great people, and we were productive. That's my advice to you. You can, as I say, you can do whatever you want to do. I know people have busy lives, and it's different in that we were all retired, or should have been retired. I don't know what the case is, but anyway, we had the wherewithal to do it, and there's others of you who don't. But there is nobody who is required to work 18 hours a day, right? Yeah, you know,
Right.
work days 8-10 hours. You've got the rest of the day. Yeah, sure, you need to do things with family and with home and the like, but who among you can't give a few hours a week to participating in a blog, to contributing to the website? That's what I would recommend. So don't be sitting there questioning, I wonder if I'm included.
Right.
Write your RSVP the appropriate way.
Right. Actively engaged and be part of it. You'll guarantee your spot if you're doing everything that Yahweh asked of you to do.
Right. And if that doesn't appeal to you, then I'm going to tell you, attorney is not going to appeal to you.
It's not.
We're not going to be
exactly-
sitting around and you know and sipping mint juleps 24/7 during the millennial Shabbat. Not that
Good work.
style. Maybe Mai Tais, but not mint juleps. No. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. I'm obviously, you know, I'm passionate about certain things. I'm not fond of the anti-Semitism in the UK or the stupidity of the Israeli government as much as I love Israel, and that we think that Donald Trump, we know he is Satan incarnate. He is Rahab, and that we ought to oppose him, and that we have become a species that is hugely degraded in terms of our morality, our ability to reason, and that we care deeply about what Yahweh said and trust him and want to make a contribution to the world based upon what he has offered and what he expects in return. So thank you. My pleasure to be with you. Thank you again for coming back, Matt, and as part of the Matt fan club, Kevin, thank you for co-hosting this program with me.
Thank you guys for having me again. I greatly appreciate it.